Hello, everyone. In this video, I'm fortunate enough to chat with one of my favorite filmmakers alive, someone who is an Irish filmmaker, someone who I've wanted to chat with for so long. He couldn't have been any kinder in helping set this up. It's the fantastic Vincent Lambe. He's the director of Oscar-nominated short film DETAINMENT. Recently, he's the director of Every 5 Miles. We've been trying to put this chat together for a while. He was off some place called Cannes. I think it's some, don't know what that was, but no, dude, it's such a pleasure to chat with you, Vincent. How you doing today, man?
Hey Daniel, I'm good. I'm great. Yeah, I'm a big fan of your interviews as well. So no, we're glad we got time to chat. Really good. Yeah, how are you doing?
Dude, I'm doing amazing. It's so crazy to hear someone say that they're a fan of my channel. I'm going to be walking about my house later on. Like Vincent Lamb said, he's a fan. No one talked to me. I'm going straight up. I'm going to go on a mad one. No, man, you're such a terrific director. So I'm so honored to chat
Ah,
with you.
nice.
And dude, normally when I begin, I'm chatting with lads in Los Angeles. So it's always like the
I,
weather is
I've
so
I've
lovely.
noticed. I've
Yeah.
seen. Yeah, I saw your Joe Russo interview. How cool, right? Yeah.
It has been the craziest last few days, man. Honestly, things have been so bizarre. It's like my head's on a swivel, man. It was like one day I'm like, talking, and then all of a sudden the next day it's up on Instagram. People are following me. I'm getting messages. It's been such a whirlwind, but I'm very grateful about it all. But man, it's just been insane. It's been insane.
Yeah. No, because you know what? I followed the Russo brothers like as well. And that's where I saw it first. I was like, I know that guy.
I imagine you just open your phone and my mush is on your screen. You
Yeah,
throw the
no,
thing
no,
out your
it was
hand.
like Joe Russo had posted it. I was like, what the heck? And I was like, brilliant, amazing. Like, and he's invited you over like to chat with him like on one of the shoots, right?
Oh my days, it's insane. Yeah, Citadel
Yeah,
season 2, and I was just talking to his assistant, and with the strike, it's being pushed back, but it's 2024. They're keeping me in the loop. It's been
excellent.
unreal. Joe Russo's the nicest guy ever. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's been like when I started this channel, I never imagined anything like that would ever happen. Truly, I just do it so I can like wreck the ears off people like yourself, filmmakers I admire, and it's been. Once, dude, I can't even describe it. I came back from training. I was just training some guy, right? And I come home, and it's like Joe Russo's tagged you in a post, and it's like 100 new notifications. And literally, I was in the door. I was in my football shorts still, man. It was
uh,
like I
uh,
think if people could actually like live like with me and see how I am regularly, they would not decide to message me or follow me. They'd see just it's just been such a strange experience, man. But it's like to say I'm honored is an
that's
understatement.
incredible. Yeah, amazing. Well, look, yeah, man, to make sure you take him up on that offer whenever it happens. You know, I
Dude, could
mean,
you imagine if I was like, you're all right, you're all right, don't worry about it. Like, I mean,
yeah,
Irish
yeah,
people I think
yeah.
are horribly self-deprecating. So I always took a lesson never to be like, no, there's no need, because that doesn't fly over with different people from America and England and stuff like that. So I mean, when I heard that, like I was about to fall out of my chair, man. It was when he said that, I think you could
Right.
see it in my face. Because I mean,
I know, I know.
yeah. They took the segment from it, the clip from the interview, and he said that at the very end. So we were like into a 40-minute chat when he said that. And he just kind of in it, like, we were in the chat,
Right.
we were talking about film, and I'm like, yeah, you guys want to fly out to LA? I'm like, what? And like I was like, I don't want to make a fool out of myself in case he's joking. And like this was just a joke I didn't get. So I was like, yeah. What? Yeah, are you joking me? And then like he was like, no, man, we'll fly you out. And the way he slipped it in, I was almost falling off my
That's
chair.
incredible. Like, wow. Yeah, I mean, people would like kill for an experience like that, you know.
Dude,
So,
yeah, I feel like I have such guilt now. I'm like, people are like saying, "Oh, dude, that's amazing. This is like your career. It's gonna be great for you." And I feel like, well, maybe I don't deserve
yeah,
this. I mean, it's just been a whirlwind, and I'm just so honored. Like, I've had my channel, like, I've just interviewing directors. I never like truly, and it sounds a bit like cliche, like you're just saying it. I'd never ever conceived of anything like that happening, man.
so do you plan on being a filmmaker? Is that your
Yeah,
goal?
well,
Is that your
yeah. That's
career path?
absolutely the aspiration. People kind of ask me, "Would you like to be a journalist and stuff like that?" And
Yeah,
I don't consider myself a journalist. I mean, I guess technically, I don't know, but filmmaking is for me absolutely the goal. I mean,
right.
I
Yeah.
just use this to
Well, you'd be a
celebrate
good
film.
interviewer as well, you know. I mean, yeah, maybe you should be hosting the late late now now or something.
Yeah, get me on. You know, I'll bring the RTE back, baby. I'll bring the RTE
You're
back.
good
I'm
at
gonna go.
it. Like you've got great charm and brilliant people skills and
Oh,
everything. You make the interviews flow very nicely, you know. So that's
oh
what I
man, thanks
admire
so
about
much. You know
you. Like,
yourself, it's just all waffling. It's like you know yourself. If you just
yeah.
can, if you convince, you can kind of convince people with your words that you know what you're doing, they'll believe you. Like I still have no clue what I'm doing. Like my laptop just stopped working
Don't tell
before this.
anyone though.
Yeah, dude, man. And I mean, like, look, you know yourself. What's it like for you, a lad from Dublin, to make a film which ended up, on the Oscar shortlist and stuff like that? I mean, you must have felt the same. Like, I assume one day you came home, you were also in football shorts, I'm sure, and
Uh,
then it just happens, and then it's like, oh yeah, Oscar slipped in there. What was that like?
yeah, it kind of takes your breath away, I suppose. Yeah, because I mean, like that was kind of my childhood dream coming true, you know, like
Yeah.
since I've been, 10 years old or something, I've been telling people, oh, someday I'm going to be there, you know, like, and at the Oscars, and no one ever believes you. And it always seems, even for me, it felt so far away, you know. So when it does finally happen, you know, I mean, you can plan something your whole life, but it still takes your breath away, like
Yeah.
when it actually kind of happens, you know. So yeah, it was all a bit surreal. Like, yeah, because like I would have grown up, you know, watching the Oscars as a kid. Like, like I started making films at around when I was 10 years old, casting
Yeah.
my poor parents in roles like when we'd be on holidays and stuff.
You're directing your mother. You're like, you're not giving me
Yeah.
what I need in this scene. Come on, you're not. Yeah, I know it's in you somewhere, mother. Right? Pull it from in yourself.
Like, well, I mean, I had no one else to act like, so they were my first actors. Like, God bless them. Like, they did it. You know, I mean, I thought I was making a masterpiece. They knew it was going to be rubbish, but they did it anyway.
You're like a little Martin Scorsese. You're like that. The stress is getting to me. The stress
Kind
is
of.
getting like the budget. The budget's outrageous. It's a fiver for this film. I can't. And I assume you're just pounding them back. I can imagine, little Vincent Lambe there with the director cap on and just sitting on the chair, man. No, did you always know you want to be a filmmaker? Did you? Because I mean, growing up in Ireland, was it Jim Sheridan and Neil Jordan? Was this kind of for
Yeah,
you?
I guess so. Like, I mean, there's a festival which I'm still involved with now, the Fresh Film Festival, which is great, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for kids, like for under 18s and schools, you know. So that was one I made a short film with kids from my drama class, and it won at that. That was in 1999, I think. So it was like exactly 20 years later when I got nominated for an Oscar with Detainment. So they've been hugely supportive, you know, and I've done lots of workshops with young teenagers from the Fresh Film Festival. And it's great, it's brilliant to see that they're still there. But it was great encouragement at the time, you know,
Yeah.
to make you want to just keep making films, so I'm glad to see it still going. So, you know, that was definitely, you know, a big influence in my life and big encouragement, that you're kind of doing
Yeah,
the
yeah.
thing, I suppose.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
seen about Fresh. Everyone should go check them out. It's a fantastic film festival. It looks terrific. They're on Instagram, I think. Fresh Film
yeah,
Festival. Go give them a follow. Yeah, that's it. And I think they're doing great stuff. I've seen some of the stuff they've been doing. But that's
yeah, amazing
amazing,
what
man.
kids are doing these days. Like, yeah, really, really cool. Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing. But I mean, so growing up, I mean, obviously, making films, with your mother and your father and, just
Ah,
whatever you could. I mean, I was probably the peak of your career, right? I mean, that first short film with your mother and your father, you probably got the best performances out of them. Then winning and not getting nominated for an Oscar is probably somewhere there, but working with your mother on must have been
oh,
must have been immense.
that was like it was my dad's old Super 8mm camera that he had, you know. So we were just away on holidays, like in Achill, like, and there's this famine village and there's beautiful scenery there, like with the Minnon Heights and stuff. So, you know, I had them dressed up as famine victims and stuff.
This
And they
sounds good
walking
for an
down the
8-year-old. You
road.
went out like I was sitting here thinking it was like just you were just filming them in their regular clothes, but you developed like a visual style with this. You had them in
I
clothes and all that.
mean, I haven't watched it back in a while. It's still there on an old Super
No
8
way.
reel, you know, and I was cutting the thing in camera, like, so I must watch it again, actually. Yeah. See how bad it is.
Dude, amazing. Put it out there. It would be bad if it was like the best thing you've ever directed, wouldn't it? That'd be like you want it to kind of be bad. Because imagine if you look at it and you're like, What happened to me? I used to. What happened before I got desensitized, man? Dude, that's amazing, man. But I think, like, look, that's the way to do it, man. But I mean, Irish film. Growing up, were you influenced by Irish cinema, or was it American films? Was it like The Jaws or
Like
Apocalypse Now? Or
it was
Lord,
probably more American films, I think, at the time. I suppose, yeah. But I mean, no, I love Irish film as well now. You
yeah,
know, I mean, there's some like really incredible like Irish films coming out recently now in the last decade. You
it's
know,
been
which was
immense.
brilliant to see. You know, so I suppose a bit of both. Like, yeah, but yeah, I mean, Jim Sheridan, Neil Jordan, yeah, they would have been kind of like two of the most prominent Irish directors, I suppose, at the time.
Yeah,
But like, I've always been a massive fan of Spielberg as well, and like, and then now, I mean, maybe Scorsese and David
yeah.
Fincher, I really love, you know. So yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, you get influenced by everything around you, really. I guess.
Was there a film in particular you looked at and was like, oh God, one day I'd love to do something like that?
Like, I mean, there's probably a lot. Like, I mean, like, I guess my, you know, your taste changes as you get older. Like, I suppose, and like I now, like, I'm obsessed by true stories and like specifically
Really?
true crime and stuff. So I watch all those, you know, kind of gritty council estate dramas made by ITV and BBC, like which I think are great. Like there's stuff like Little Boy Blue or something was brilliant. I thought The Moorside, Three Girls is another great one, which is on Netflix now about the Rochdale child abuse scandal. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they're all kind of based on a true story, but there's, you know, there's a way of telling it like with heart, you know, and um, you know, so I think that's kind of the genre I'd like to, you know, stay somewhat involved with. But you know, I'm not gonna, you know, just close myself off to that. I mean, anything that's got, you know, great drama and something challenging there for an actor will always interest me.
Yeah, Darby O'Gill, The Little People Part Two. Is that what you're thinking? I mean, I heard you
Yeah.
talk. Once you
Why?
start talking about true stories, I was like, maybe this is where I slip it in. I just pitch him Darby O'Gill, The Little People Part Two. I just think, I think it
You
says so
never
much
know.
about the world we live in. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, I mean, like, I mean, anything, you know, like if there's a heart to it and some good drama like in there,
Yeah,
I'm interested. You know, like I always think it's the filmmaker's job to elicit an emotional response in the viewer. You know, so no matter what you're watching, like if it's a comedy, a horror, or something, you should be making the viewer feel something. You know,
yeah, yeah,
like you know, if it's a comedy, you got to laugh. If it's, you know, a horror, you should be scared, you know, or you should be engaged or something. You know, I mean, if it's a drama, ideally you want to rip the viewer's heart out. You
yeah.
know, so you know, I love scripts like that where, you know, you can really affect an audience, and when there's potential to do something you know, emotional with it like that, that will ring true and you know, actually make people feel something when they're watching it. You know, I mean, if I watch a film and I don't feel anything watching it, then I, you know, in my opinion, it's a pretty crap film.
You've kind of clocked out. If you can't connect with it, you kind of, you just lose interest and you don't care about the characters. And I think that's when, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you don't believe in the characters, yeah, you know, I think yeah, the film is probably going to be a disaster. You know, because anything that happens to them, then, you know, you're not really gonna,
Yeah.
you're gonna kind of feel like you're being played or something. I think as an audience.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, when you watch a film, I think the great action films that people love aren't the films that are just 2 hours of shooting. It's if you don't care for the characters, you know, after the first half an hour, all of a sudden you're just gonna clock out. And even though they could have these beautiful set pieces, explosions, and all that, if you don't care for the characters, and I think people don't even realize that. I think they go and they say that was such a great action film, but I think the only reason they love it is because they ended up caring for the characters and, you know, for the
Yeah,
way in which they were portrayed. I don't think people, I don't even think people realize themselves why they love the films they watch, because, you know, no amount of set piece or huge blockbuster piece is going to matter if you don't care for the characters. So
yeah,
how
you're right.
important,
I mean, it
yeah,
kind of like it boils down to drama, like, you know, I think, which is in every genre, you know,
yeah,
like, and if you don't have good drama in it, like, you know, you're not really going to have that connection with the characters, you know. But like if you try to pitch drama over in LA or something, you know, they see it in a different way. It's almost like a dirty word. Like it's like, oh, you know, like my manager used to keep telling me like, stop using the word drama, because
The
they hear
producers just curl
drama.
up into a ball and start crying.
Yeah, like they I think they kind of think like that it's gonna be boring or something. But like in my mind, like, and you know, coming from Ireland, like I mean that's what it's all about. Like I mean, you want like good drama and something
Yeah.
like emotional that you can connect with the characters over. So you know, even if you are doing an action film or something, you know, I mean, if there's no drama in it, it's going to be a pretty boring
Yeah.
film. You know, so you know, I would you know try and you know whatever I was making, you know. Like I'd never say you know I can't do this genre, but I'd always try and put a bit of myself into it, like and you know and find the drama in there, find a heart to the story, you know, even if it is, you know, something that on the surface might just seem like, you know, some trashy horror
Yeah.
or action film, you know, there's still a way of telling it, you know, with a heart and gets viewers engaged, I think.
Dude, you're totally right, man. And something else I think that's very evident in your work is honesty. I mean, we're talking about drama. I think the best films are the ones that are completely honest and express something about characters in such a truthful way. How important is honesty? I mean, we're talking about stuff based on true stories. Honesty is a different level. Honesty all of a sudden becomes more important because it's based on a true story. So how important is honesty for you as a director, as a filmmaker in your work? Would you describe honesty as something that's important to
Oh
you?
yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're telling a true story, like I mean, like this debate came up, you know, with all the controversy that was surrounding Detainment and the Oscar nomination, and it kind of led to like a wider debate about do we have the right to tell true stories, you
Yeah.
know, and you know, I think we do, yeah, but I still think there's a huge amount of responsibility that comes with telling a true story, you know.
Certainly, it's kind of elevated. It's a different level of visual
Yeah,
storytelling.
I mean, like certainly with Detainment, you know, because that story was so enormously sensitive, you know, I wanted to make sure everything in the film was entirely factual and that there was no embellishments in there whatsoever. You know, so
Yeah,
we went through every scene so that we could call it a true story as opposed to being, you know, just based on a true story or inspired by a true story. You know, there's a big difference. Um, and you know, I thought then by doing that, you know, nobody would be able to punch holes in it. But you know, of course I was wrong. Like you know, because I didn't, you know, account for the tabloids just kind of
yeah,
making things up about the film. You know, and at the time of the Oscar nomination for that, we've been kind of working on a UK broadcast, and my plan was always, you know, for people to have seen the film and then they can talk about it and say whatever they want about it.
yeah.
But the way, like the Oscar nomination came like sooner than we had planned. Like the film had only been, it was only a few months like that it had been released
So
when,
people have like they'd be talking about without actually watching the film.
yeah, they hadn't seen the film because it wasn't available, you know, on general
Yeah,
release. So it was a really tricky situation because people just assumed that the film was going to be made in supremely bad taste, you know, because it's such a horrible story, like a true
yeah,
story. You know, people kind of thought like, well, it's probably going to be a horrible film then, and I think even if I saw somebody making that film, I'd probably think the same. You know, so I don't blame people for you know jumping to those conclusions, but I would beg them to watch
yeah,
it because I think the film is different to what they might have in their heads, you know, after reading a tabloid article about it or something, you know.
yeah,
Because you know I think the film is responsibly made, and you know I was always very aware of you know the victim that's at the heart of the story, and that's what kind of you know got me interested in the story in the first place. Like I grew up you know having nothing but sympathy for you know James Baldwin's family. So it was only really as an adult when I started you know looking into it further, and I read David James Smith's book, which is it's called The Sleep of Reason, and we became very good friends over it. You know, David interviewed all the detectives and the families involved in the case. He was one of the first people to say that he saw it as a tragedy, not just for one family, but for three families.
yeah,
And I guess it's an unpopular opinion to have, like, but you know, once I kind of saw that, like, you know, once you start seeing it as a tragedy, you know, not just for one family, but for three families, like now I just can't see it any other way. So yeah, it was a hard one to get out of my head, you know, because I felt, you know, as shocking as that crime was, I was
Yeah,
equally shocked by the public reaction to it. You know, you know, these were two 10-year-old boys, and people wanted to kill them. They wanted to hang them, you know, and even to this day, you know, there's people who still, you know, want to find these boys
yeah.
and attack them because they see them as just being evil monsters, you know, and the spawn of Satan, you know. But you know, I think you know, there's much more to that case, you know, that people need to look at and understand.
Totally, man. I think it's endlessly fascinating. There's no easy answer. There's no necessarily right answer. I mean, you know, Quentin Tarantino, who you may know, he's a bit of an independent filmmaker. I think he might.
Oh, we're like this, Daniel. Yeah, me and
Oh yeah,
Quentin,
you
man.
and
Yeah.
Quentin. Damn it! Damn it! Only I get
I'll
to
have a
make those
coffee
jokes
with him
about
later,
filmmakers.
man. Yeah.
He lives up in Crumlin now. I think. I think he just left the
Yeah,
LA
yeah,
pad.
yeah. We're going for a pint. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him. He was floating up at the Furry Bog a few days ago. But yeah, he was on a mad one, 3 day bender, I think it was.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
no,
yeah. You always catch him there. Yeah, yeah.
I just ran up to when are we getting Kill Bill 3? But he, you know, he makes a lot of statements, and I think, you know, you can't slight him as a filmmaker. He's done some terrific stuff. Sometimes he says things that I disagree with, but something I heard he said recently that I think resonates with me. It's that films can't be offensive. It was like anyone who's offended over a film should look at it. And I think on one hand that's right, because if we can't use film as an art form to express ourselves and to ask questions that are hard questions, what's the point? Film, I think, you know, people kind of have notions of film being this kind of rich thing, and you know, when they picture film, they think of like directors in black suits holding champagne. But really, I think film is at its best when you look at its history. And like after World War II, you know, I was recently in Italy and I was at there's this
Hmm.
Cinecittà Studios in Rome. And I don't even know if I pronounce it right. That's where I got all my Italian posters. But I was
Right.
there and I went in and, you know, you saw them talk about the history of the studio created by Mussolini, as he believed cinema was the greatest weapon. And you see the
Hmm.
films that came out of it, propaganda films. But then after World War II, all of a sudden there was like an influx of rebellious films questioning things, films that were, you know, questioning the reality and questioning just what any of it means and the world they live in and questioning the government and stuff like that. And I think that's what film truly is, when you see these people who they expressed it through an art form what they were feeling in a way they couldn't articulate with words. So it's something that is endlessly fascinating. Is, I mean, how film affects people and how some people will watch a film and say that's too much for me. Some people watch some films and say, oh no, this is they shouldn't have depicted that visually. But it's like, where is the line? You know, if we look at one film and say that that's not allowed, where do we stop? When do we look? What happens? What stops us from looking at like a film like Apocalypse Now and saying, you know, no, the way we're depicting characters in this, shut it down. So yeah, it's interesting, man. And I don't think there is a right answer, right?
Oh, I know. I mean, I really see what you're saying, but like, where's the line? You know, because yeah, I think, you know, if you do start drawing a line and saying, well, you can only make films about these kind of things, you know,
Yeah.
then someone else will come along and draw another line, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
You know, so I don't think there should be a line, but I at the same time I do think there's, you know, huge responsibility that comes with, you know, telling something like, if it is a true story, that, you know, you do need to,
Yeah.
you know, I be telling the truth, and you know, tell it in a respectful way, I think, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think there should be a line, but there's definitely, you know, responsibility, you know,
Yeah,
that
there's absolutely a responsibility to a filmmaker when you're doing true stories. And I mean, all the topics I think you've made films about have been very real. I mean, I think, you know, in terms of filmmaking, the things you've explored through film, I greatly admire, because I think that's what film should be used for. To depict maybe the voices, you know, and to depict the stories that you don't usually see on screen, you know, not necessarily fictionalized and stuff like that. And I think there's totally room for two films, right? There's rooms for film like that. And then I believe there's room for films like Jaws or Iron Man or,
Of
you know,
course, yeah.
Austin Powers 3. You know, like if someone says to me my two favorite films are like, I don't know, you know, Seven, or, you know, one of my favorite films is Seven and then Austin Powers 3. That's great, you know? I mean, at
Hmm.
least you're watching films. I don't think there is one film or one art form that's superior to another.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'd never turn away from just one genre, you
Yeah.
know. But like I do love films that, you know, have the potential to affect social change, or, you know, if there's a purpose there, you know, beyond just entertainment,
Yeah, yeah.
or something. You know, if you can make people look at something in a different light or a different way, like I think, you know, that's really, you know, uh, quite admirable filmmaking. You know,
Do
like
you
one
want
of
to ask
the
questions as a filmmaker?
yeah, I mean, no, I think it should. You know, I mean, you know, I mean, Detainment, for example, it doesn't, you know, it certainly doesn't have all the answers, you know, but it does ask a lot of questions, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, allows people to kind of, you know, use it as a gateway to maybe, you know, look into that case themselves, you know, like a different way. Like a lot of people ask me, you know, why didn't I make it as a documentary or something, you know, and the thing is, you know, with a drama, you can do something different that a documentary just can't do. Like with a
Yeah.
documentary, you're going to be hearing, you know, people, you know, talk about what happened, and they'll say, well, this happened and that happened. But with a drama, you can put them right there. You can put the viewer right there in the room where they're feeling every moment, every feeling as if it's their own, you know, and that's very powerful, you know, and I think it helps an audience, you know, be able to relate to a character in a different sense, you know, and understand, you know, like what this character has gone through. You know, so with a documentary, you're just a step removed from it. So I'm much more interested in working with actors and
You're more of a spectator, I think, for something like a documentary. But when you're, you know, when it's something that's visually, you're kind of with these characters.
yeah,
And
if you can feel like you're kind of immersed
yeah,
in it, you know, and then, you know, it can really make you feel something, you know, I think, you know, so I mean, that's the kind of filmmaking I love.
that's the power of cinema. I think if I had to describe film in one word, it'd be connection. You know, because whether, like I said, whether or not anyone is watching a film, if you like a film, it's because you connected with it the most. And if you hate a film, it's because you didn't connect with it, you didn't find your
Yeah,
way in. The director didn't do, maybe the director didn't do his job. Maybe the film wasn't for you. It happens. Like there are many famous films that some people don't enjoy. That's fine. But if you can't connect with these characters and at least look at them with I think it maybe it depends on how empathetic the person is. Maybe it doesn't. I don't have the answer for that. But connection, I feel, is the power of cinema. Because like, look, when I'm watching a film like Bicycle Thieves, for anyone who doesn't know, it's an old Italian film. Like
yeah,
I feel like I know what that's like to be this, you know, Italian, you know, postal worker who's, you know, in poverty right now and he's going through
mm,
this. I can empathize with that, and I always put myself in his shoes. You know, when I'm watching a film like La Haine, I know what it's like to I can empathize with these characters who are in these, you know, French riots and all these people who are going through these tough situations. When you can depict them in a way, I think it drags people in and
yeah. Have I
it
just
makes
lost
them
you?
look at them
No,
in the eyes. Sorry, you cut out. You back
yeah,
now?
no, you just glitched for a second, but I think I have you back. Do I, Daniel? Yeah, I think you're
Yeah,
there.
well,
Right, go ahead.
honestly, I was just waffling. I don't think you missed anything. But
Yeah, that's
I
all
was
right.
saying, you know, I think connection is obviously where it's at. So, I mean, how important is, you know, having your audience connect with the characters in your films? Is that something that's hard for you to do, or is it something that's just second nature because you've worked with such a honest
Well,
style?
I think you're right. I mean, that's like you know, like one of the most important things you know, about directing. I think, you know, I mean, that you need to, you know, believe in the characters, you know, and
Yeah,
it's finding, like, you know, the truth of a scene there, you know. So it's like, you know, you sometimes, you might be working with actors, and what's very important is that, you know, the actors are responding to each other, and not just saying their lines, you know,
yeah,
but they're being affected by what the other actor is saying in the scene, you know. But, you know, if they've just rehearsed their lines independently of each other and they're kind of talking at each other but without really getting that connection between
yeah.
each other, you know, the scene just won't ring true then, you know. So that's something, you know, which is always great, like to workshop a scene with actors, I think, and make sure that, you know, the actors themselves are responding to what they're hearing, you know, and in the moment, you know, that
Totally.
um And it's small little things like that, just little glances like between actors, and once you kind of get that connection, I think, between the actors on screen, and then the audience will follow them anywhere, and they believe it, so like one of the hardest things to do, or like, I mean, one of the biggest challenges as a director is where you want to affect the viewer, you want to make them feel something, but you need to do it in a way where they never feel like they're being played.
Yeah.
Like if like for example with Detainment, because those two boys are so hated like by so many people, like even to this day, if there was any sense that it didn't ring true, or that they were being manipulated in any way, or like, oh, I'm it's supposed to feel something now, if the viewer starts thinking that, I mean, then the film would have been a disaster. So I mean, it was absolutely paramount that those performances rang true and were like completely believable. Otherwise, Detainment just simply wouldn't have worked. It would look like propaganda or something, and no one would buy it. It'd be a disaster. So we spent a lot of time, just working with the boys on that, and trying to get a really authentic, raw performance from them.
Yeah, it's a hard line to walk, man. I mean, you just put it so eloquently there, but I was like, it's funny you talk about manipulation. I think, when you're watching a film, it's the director's kind of trying, I don't know, manipulation's a strong word, but they're trying to get you to feel for these characters. They're trying to do their best. I was talking to Craig Soller, who, I mean, Craig Soller, best mate. I was talking to Craig Soller, and he was mentioning how he never uses music in his work. And it's not until you watch it where you realize it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he never uses music because he feels like that's manipulating the audience. He felt if I'm gonna have when that music cues, you can kind of tell sometimes in the film when the music is somber and it's trying to invoke an emotion in you. He says he kind of feels like that should just be done visually, and that's a very interesting way to look at it. It's not necessarily wrong. It's not how a lot of other filmmakers work. It's just how he does it, and it's interesting to see how different filmmakers explore different things. But that was a fascinating point you just brought. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, with score, like, I think something, like a score will definitely help a scene, communicate what you're trying to, get the viewer to feel. But, I would always try and keep it subtle, like, I mean, the scores that you barely even notice are probably the best ones. Like you don't necessarily want to come away humming the melody of the score, but if there's a little subtle score there, it can really help a scene. Like, I mean, it might just be like a little low, subtle, quivering drone or something, and you'd barely even notice it being there. But then you take it away, and then the scene might just feel a bit dead. So I that's the way I would treat scores. Like, I mean, scores
it can
that
make or break a scene, kind of. It's fascinating. I mean, people don't appreciate, like, I'm only looking into this, but I mean, film, so much of it is sound. Sound design is such an integral part when you're watching it. And I was watching a film. It's like George Lucas directed this before he made Star Wars. It's a sci-fi. I think it's called PHX 1181. I don't know if you've seen it. It's this old sci-fi.
No, I haven't actually. Right.
Yeah, and I was watching. There's a version for free on the Internet Archive.
Right.
And I was watching it, and there was this score, and it was a very like 2000s techno score. And I was watching it, and it was kind of like I couldn't hear the character speaking, and it got to the point where I was like, I don't know what these people are saying. So I looked at the comments, and people are like, "This has been updated with a new score, something, something, something." So I was like, "Really?" And then I looked at the original version, and watching that, all of a sudden the storytelling was different to me. I watched the same first 20 minutes like I did, and I kind of got a completely different film just with the score. So it's fascinating, and I think people like, it's like when people watch a film. I was talking to a filmmaker, and he said to me, either you'll make a film and it'll be bad and they'll hate you, or you'll make a film and it'll be good and they'll resent you for it being good and they'll hate you anyway. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? You just can't win. Just and he put it like that. Yeah. And when I heard that, it was like there was just a weight lifted off. It was like, yeah, that's just the way to do it. But no, I think it's integral just how much work goes into it. I mean, are you a perfectionist in your work, or are you
I am probably.
Are you bad for it?
Like, but like I'm kind of, like one of the best things I've probably learned from working in film now is to just kind of trust people around you to do their job. Like, whereas
it's so collaborative.
Yeah, yeah. Like I mean, with like with Detainment, for example, I edited that myself, and
Yeah.
it's because it was all my own money that went into it. So there was nobody to tell me I can't. So I'm a bit of a control freak, like,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to have to be arguing with an editor to get something I want into a film that I've emptied my bank account into, like. So I ended up cutting it myself, like, contrary to my producer's advice and everything. Like I didn't edit the last thing I made myself, and it was nice to be able to actually trust someone else as well, and to be able to hand them the
Yeah.
controls and take a step back. So I think, yeah, one of the biggest things I've learned is now to just you like find people that you admire and that are talented, and let them do what they do best,
Yeah.
and trust them with it a bit more. So yeah, I still am a bit of a perfectionist, but I'm learning to delegate
I can
things.
imagine you editing it and just crying. You're just like face down crying. It's like there's this old advert, and it was an ad for a camera with film, and Martin Scorsese's in it, and the whole thing is he goes and he was taking pictures of his nephew's 5th birthday party, and he's
Right.
handing out the cards, and he gets them back after they're printed, and he's looking at them, and he's like that. This is horrible. Where's the antagonist? Where's the protagonist? What am I doing with this picture? And it's so funny because it was literally just him taking pictures at his nephew's birthday party, and he's treating it like an Oscar, like a film that's going to be Oscar nominated. And then he rings up his nephew at the end. He's like, "Okay, how would you like to do your 5th birthday party again?" And then Martin Scorsese was telling the story, and then he was like, when he ran into his DP was like, "Oh, I love that ad. It was like being back at the monitor with you." It's like, so you look at some people and the work they put in, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's mad, man. I mean, it's such a collaborative process. You're kind of trusting other people who are good at their job to help elevate your project. Is it
Yeah.
hard for you to
Yeah.
let go of that kind of control?
Like it can be,
Yeah.
I probably do people's heads in, like, like there's a composer I've worked with twice now, Philip Sianish, and he's great, like, but the poor guy, like, he probably thought, there was going to be, less work in it than there was, but because I'm such a perfectionist, I'd be like, "Oh, Philip, it's still not right. It's not right. Like, no, we need to nail this scene," and he'd be like, "Oh,
Ripping
so
your hair out.
it can be a bit frustrating, but, like, we always get there in the end,
Yeah.
and I think he's kind of grateful as well for the torment that I put him through, because he does great work, in the end, all the time anyway, I'm really, admire what he's able to do, but it is definitely a collaborative
Yeah. Totally.
process, working with a composer or something like that, or a DOP. um and yeah, it can take a long time getting there, but it's worth the struggle, I think, in the end, if people are able to put up with me and my perfectionism. Like,
Dude, I mean, look, it's created a great result anyway. But I'd love to ask you. I mean, you look at, film and how it's constantly evolving and constantly changing. Is there Do you have a specific dream film? Is there any project in particular, or like any existing IP, or is your dream film your projects and your films and those true stories that you love to explore? Do you have a dream project, or are you just happy doing your own thing?
like one film in my head that
Yeah,
I'm
if you
destined
could
to
do
make.
anything, if you could, let's say, all right, let's say I'm like the king of Hollywood. I'm about to hand you the keys to
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
Do you have a
Like,
dream?
there is. I mean, there's a couple of stories, yeah, that I would love to tell. I mean, there's one I've been attached on for a long time, but I can't really tell you too much about
Yeah,
it
yeah,
because it hasn't been made. And I had a lot of meetings about it, in LA, like after the Oscars, and I was meeting, like, with, like, oh, I mean, like, some incredible companies, like I met with Ron Yerxa and Albert Berger, who were the producers of Little Miss Sunshine, and they loved the script as well. And I had meetings with Amazon about it. Everything was looking good, like, for this
yeah.
drama. I'm still attached on it. It's a great script. I hopefully it'll come off the ground at some
It's
stage.
mad how much it's just patience for a lot of things. Like I'm talking to filmmakers, and it's like like most of their projects, like they just got lucky with it. It just worked. Someone signed off on it at the right
Yeah,
time. People, I think, don't look at it, and like I think people say, "Oh well, they obviously picked that film because it makes them money." But a lot goes into it. It's a lot of people behind the scenes who analyze it and look at it, and it's just a lot of luck from what I've heard. But that's fascinating, man. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a bunch of stories in my head, that I'd love to make it at some time. I mean, true stories as well, that
Yeah.
I think could make a great drama. Like they're tricky enough, like to get off the ground. But I mean, there's one I'm working on now, which is looking very likely to go ahead, and it's a great script, beautiful script. So we're hoping
Love
to be shooting kind of March, April for that.
it.
Touch wood, like but it's the deals aren't all signed yet, so I can't go into it too much with you.
Dude,
But
tell them
I
you're
hope it
friends with
will.
me. You'd be all right. Just tell them you're mates with me. They'll give you a couple
I
million for it,
will,
I'm sure.
Daniel. Yeah.
Just name
So
drop me. I'm big.
like I mean, there's one that is looking like very likely to go ahead now, and yeah, I don't want to jinx it, because my
Yeah,
life
of
is just a
course.
bit like that, like where something almost happens and then something else comes along and messes it all up. Like
Dude, I've heard this story all too many times.
yeah.
I'd love to ask you about your newest project, Every 5 Miles. Is it? Oh,
All right.
you were
So
over in Cannes.
that
Sorry.
was a pilot for RTE, which we made. Sinead Colopy was the writer on that, and it's to do with modern day slavery and
Yeah.
human trafficking within Ireland. So that's one that was it was made well, like under the Storyland scheme with RTE, and there's still huge potential to develop it further. I hope it does go on further. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with that. Like I'm not sure just yet. But yeah, it'd be. I mean, I think Sinead is, has an outline there, to make a 6-part drama out of it. But it was a nice one to work on because it's got a good purpose there. It's kind of a social awareness drama where
Yeah.
uh, if it causes one person to kind of just see something that looks a bit odd at a car wash and report it, then the film will have done some good. I felt.
My God, man, you don't believe in picking easy work. I mean,
Ah,
the films you explore, I mean, that's brilliant that you can make these films that people question and that about serious and important topic matters. I mean, what's that I mean, we've talked a lot about responsibility and that responsibility. Is there a pressure that's attached to that responsibility when you're doing something that's such a heavy topic and that affects a lot of people, like very personally?
Yeah, like a little bit, I guess, but I mean, pressure is good, it's good to kind of feel that pressure, it'd be boring if there wasn't any
Yeah.
pressure, I think. Like, if
Maybe
something,
you're just an adrenaline freak and you like, yeah, you like the feeling it inflicts
yeah,
on you.
like, I don't know, yeah, I mean, like, there's certain things I don't think I'd be great at, like, I mean, like, comedy is probably one. I mean, I love to watch a good comedy, but it's
Yeah.
really hard to do a comedy, actually, because, and to make something funny, like, so,
It's
I mean,
hard to
that's
be
probably.
intentionally funny. Like I've talked about this with comedy writers. It's hard to sit down and be like, "What's funny," and just come up with jokes.
Yeah, like it's probably not one of the things I'd be good. I mean, I think I'm better at telling, serious subjects, that can kind of, resonate and have a, like a social justice story is always like something that's going to
Yeah.
interest me.
Do you have to
Um,
put yourself in that headspace when you're doing something like that?
oh well, yeah. I mean, like with Detainment, I started to feel more like a journalist than a filmmaker at
Really?
times. I think, because I was researching, like everything. I watched every documentary, I read every article and every book I could find,
Yeah.
on that case, like on the Bulger case, and I was like, I was amazed that those interview transcripts hadn't been dramatized before because they'd been public record for 25 years,
Yeah.
and I was like, there was so much drama in there, where uh, like where the boys are so different in their responses when they're questioned. Like Robert. If you've seen it, I mean, he kind of has a smart aleck answer for everything. Like, and he said, well, there's lots of people, there's lots of jackets like that. I mean, there's lots of, and he kind of batted off the detectives are getting frustrated with him, whereas John, he's up out of his chair. At the first hint, he might not be telling the truth. He's up out of his chair, hysterical. He
Yeah.
throws himself in the lap of the detectives for comfort at one stage. He buries his head against his mum and he says, yeah, we were there, but we never got a kid, mum. We never got a kid. He wails his, I never, I never, I never, I never, until it no longer sounds like words, but like
Yeah.
one long cry. And I was like, wow, I mean, there's so much emotion here, how has it not been made as a drama?
Yeah.
And I know now because
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
know now.
you get like, you know, attacked for it and criticized for it, like
But I
and
mean, it's like if you can make a piece of art that has that effect on people, that's terrific. Like I think obviously, like you said, there was a lot of controversy, but like I truly hope that one day I make something that has that result and starts those conversations, because I think that's the point of cinema. I think the best films are the ones that have you asking questions, saying, "Well, is that right?" And it's like I think people didn't want to talk about it. I think people certainly had their notions and then stuck to that. And it wasn't much of a conversation, but I think if you can create a film that creates a conversation, well, then that's beautiful. When something like that
yeah.
comes from a film, but like we said, man, it's a blurred line. It's hard. There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, it certainly started a debate about it, you know, which
Yeah.
I was glad to see, you know, because you know I always felt that there should be room for you know, a debate about that case and the circumstances which would lead, you know, 2 10-year-old boys to commit such a
Horrible
horrific
thing.
crime, you know, whereas you know, if you just dismiss them as being evil, it's very likely that something like that would happen again, you know, because you're not really fully understanding it, you know. And I understand where it comes from, because I think, you know, at the time when that happened, I don't know if, you know, if you knew much about it before the film, like if you had you heard of that case?
No,
Uh,
not before your short
right.
film.
No, I
No.
mean, there's a generation that wouldn't have, you know, but I was 12 when it happened, you know, and I think at the time when it happened, people couldn't really cope with the idea that 2 10-year-old boys could do this, you know.
Yeah.
So the only way they could make sense of it was if they were evil, that they must be evil, you know. And that's how, you know, they were able to settle it in their head, you know. And you know, now, you know, anyone who has an alternate opinion, or if you try to understand why they did it, and if you give any reason other than them being evil, you get attacked and criticized for being too sympathetic to the boys, you know. And as a result, now it's just kind of stifled debate on the
Yeah.
whole thing, where you know, people can't even have a conversation about it, you know. So one thing the film did do, it opened it up and let people debate it again and look into it. And like I don't think anyone is actually born evil, you know. But I think, you know, you're not going to find the answer in the Bible, but if you look into their family backgrounds, you'll get a much better sense of what could have led these two boys to commit such a horrific crime.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, you put it so eloquently there. I don't think there's anything I can do to follow up on it. But you look at film. I mean, as an art form, what is the most special thing about film to you? I mean, it's allowed you to express such these difficult stories and these stories that are hard to almost depict visually. What is it about film that you feel is such a great art form and such a suitable art form for these stories that are, you know, whether it's about modern day slavery, whether it's about something as horrible as the Bulger case? What is it about film that you feel is perfect venue to explore that
Like,
in this way?
I think, I mean, maybe I was naive in it, like, but I entered into it thinking I might be able to, you know, change people's minds on that case, where, you know, they've had such a long held opinion that these two boys are simply evil, you know. That, you know, I thought, you know, I might be able to get them to think of it in a different way, or at least want to look into the case a bit more, you know. I mean, whereas, you know, there's still a mob, you know, who are people who want to kill those boys, you know. I mean, they were 10 years of age, you know. And uh you know, like I like one of the questions I asked David James Smith, right, the journalist who wrote this phenomenal book on the case, which takes you through step by step the whole interview process. He was there for the hearing to determine whether or not these boys could be tried as adults or children. And the whole thing was done away with in around 20 minutes or something. He thought it was going to take days, like maybe even weeks to decide, because it's a whole different set of rules. They brought in a school teacher and a neighbor who said, yes, they know it's wrong to lie. They know it's wrong to steal. They know it's wrong to kick. They certainly know it's wrong to kill. And the judge said, okay, we're gonna try them as adults.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, that's what everyone wanted, you know. And I think, you know, like a big part of that was to understand whether or not they knew right from wrong. Like, and you see that at the beginning of the film where they need to, you know, determine, do they have an understanding of right from wrong? And I think at 10 years of age, yes, you do have an understanding, a basic understanding of right from wrong. But I don't think they fully understood the consequences of their actions, you know. And anyone who says to me like now that at 10 years of age, you have a full understanding of right from wrong, you know, then I would say, well, why don't we have juries of 10-year-olds trying murder cases, you know?
Yeah.
And then they'd say, oh, well, no, you know, you can't have 10-year-olds trying an adult for murder because they don't have a full understanding of right from wrong. So you know, it can't work both ways. And it was something that always bothered me, and that, you know, I thought people just needed to look at again, you know, and that, you know, it's important to look into their backgrounds and learn something from that case, you know, as opposed to just dismissing them as being these evil monsters. So that was
Yeah,
one of my
it's an
goals
exercise
with
in empathy.
Entertainment.
Yeah, I think it's an exercise in empathy for a lot of people. How far can you extend your empathy and your understanding?
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, where, you know, like even, you know, when, yeah, I mean, when you can look at the worst of, you know, human beings' potential, you know, but still see humanity
Yeah,
there in it, you know. I mean, and I think that's something that a drama can do. Um, it can be difficult, you know, and people warned me, you know, not to make the film, you know, that it was going to end my career, that it would get me in lots of trouble, and I listened actually, like, you know, because I'd written the script maybe 6 years before I made it, and people said, "Don't make it. It's going to be a disaster." So I actually, you know, said, "Okay, right, I'm not going to make it." And at the same time, you know, I had enormous a sympathy for the Bulger family as
yeah.
well, and of course, you know, I mean, they you couldn't expect them to have an ounce of sympathy for, you know, the killers of their boy, you know. At the same time, though, I do think there's more than one perspective on the case, and it's important to take a step back from that. So for a whole year, I said, right, I'm not going to make it. I started working on a different story. It was a missing child story, which was also fascinating, which I might make sometime. And but I would go to sleep at night thinking about the Bulger case, and then I'd wake up thinking about it, and it was torture. Like,
Yeah, it does
so I
not
said, oh
sound.
my,
None of this sounds pleasant to me, man. None of
yeah,
this.
yeah, no, I was just, it was a story that I was just aching to tell, and I couldn't get out of my head, you know. So in the end, I said, okay, I'm going to make it. I'll make sure everything in the film is entirely factual with no embellishments whatsoever. I emptied my entire bank account into it. I maxed out my credit cards, borrowed money from siblings, and my mother buried her head in her hands.
Ah,
Said, she said, Vincent, what are you doing?
it's because you didn't cast her. She thought she was getting called back for the first short film you did with her. She thought this was her big break.
Like, yeah, it was a stupid risk. Like, you know, I mean, I don't know if I would be so quick about, you know, putting every single penny I have into a film again. But at the time, like,
It's a good thing you're rich, man. It's a good thing you're rich.
well,
You're loaded.
I wasn't rich. Like, that's the thing. Like, I was broke by the end of it. Like, I mean, the film killed me. I was in so much debt after it. Like, it was crazy. I was a bit like a madman, you know, but I was just aching to tell that story, and couldn't get it out of my head. You know, if I hadn't made it, I'd be sitting here talking to you about this story I have in my head that I have to tell. And I started kind of thinking, you know, I mean, that nobody else could make it
Yeah.
the way I could make it, you know. And you know, maybe if someone else had made it, you know, I would have left it, but nobody was making it. Like, you know, 6 years went past, and I was like, Jesus, I'm gonna have to make this. Like, I felt like I just kind of felt
Yeah.
there was no other option. Like, so
And then you understood why no one had made it.
yeah. I mean, like, a lot of people got in touch with me afterwards, filmmakers, and they said, "Oh, we thought of making that film about 10 years ago, and we didn't have the balls to do it." Like,
That
uh,
must have been reassuring to hear in pre-production. That must have been a reassuring thought.
yeah. I mean, it was. I mean,
It's,
I got to know so many people involved in the case. Then after it was released, you know, like Malcolm Stevens was one of them who he was the advisor to the Home Secretary at the time for children who commit grave and serious crimes. So he basically oversaw John Venables and Robert Thompson's rehabilitation and their whole detention and rehabilitation. So he kind of watched them grow up from age 11 to 18. He knew them better than anyone, and
Yeah.
he wrote a lovely article about it, where he basically says, I mean, that he didn't think it was possible that a film could accurately show who these two boys were. And he was blown away that Detainment was actually able to show who John and Robert actually were. So it was such a nice compliment to come from, like, the one person who kind of had worked with them and knew them better than anyone, the only person, like, in an official capacity to work with them, to work with both boys to such an extent.
Yeah,
So
it's immense, man. I mean, hearing
it
you
was,
talk about it, it sounds like such an immense process, and I'm sure the story behind making the film was just as interesting as the actual film itself, man. I mean, it sounds like you really poured yourself into it. I mean, after doing something like that, I mean, how do you as a filmmaker, and this is one of my last questions, I know I've taken up so much of your time.
sure, yeah, no, take your time, Tim. I'm more than happy to chat. Yeah, yeah.
As a filmmaker, how do you go from something like Detainment onto another topic? Is that something, is it still something that's so, like, you poured so much yourself into this project. Does it still stick with you? Are there nights where you still think about it? And, like, what's that process like moving
With
on?
Detainment, yeah, yeah. I mean, oh yeah, I mean, there's so much more to the story, and
Yeah.
I mean, there's a feature film in there. I don't think I'm going to be the one making it. Not after the controversy surrounding the short. But there's so much. Like, which leading up to that. I mean, it starts as a missing child story, which takes a turn. And then, I mean, the whole trial and everything. I mean, there's a enormous story in there, and I know it like the back of my hand now, because I just kind of became like a little bit obsessed with the whole thing, when you look into something so much.
Yeah.
um so yeah, it is a fascinating story, like, and then, there was a similar case here with the Anna Kriegel case, where two 13-year-old boys, murdered poor Anna Kriegel.
God, yeah.
And it's a lot of similarities to the Bulger case. I mean, of course they were, slightly older, um, but people kind of, were asking me what's my take on that, and I didn't want to get into
Yeah.
more trouble by giving my take on another case, but I mean, it's also, another fascinating case.
That's yeah, I don't think I'd ever be able to put myself in that head space to, explore something like that and then do something like, true crime. Like, true crime is something that doesn't appeal to me. I think, to put myself in that mindset,
Right.
it takes a lot. And I like, look, I think some people obviously, like yourself, you gravitate to it. And I think that, I think you can see the connection in there. And I think you can see that there are, these are stories that also need to be depicted visually. I mean, film is at its best when we can depict people from every slice of society and every, nook and cranny of the world, when you can depict all these different mindsets and views and stories.
Mm.
And those true crime stories do have to exist if we want to have those, those happy, go lucky films. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the same time, like, I think it's, even though, it can be a horrible case, and what happened is so tragic. Like, I think there's still, a way of finding a heart,
Yeah.
to whatever story you're telling. Even if it is something dark, I mean, there's I think that's where, storytelling, comes into it, and where, it was one of the reasons I suppose I wanted to make Detainment, because I mean, as much as I was fascinated by the case and couldn't get it out of my head, I also wanted to, show what, I could do as a storyteller and a filmmaker, and the fact that there was these two roles for two young actors, like child actors, that allows them to reach their potential. I had these ideas, of, casting two kids, because I have a lot of experience working with child actors, like doing auditions. I've worked in casting for a long time, and as an agent for actors. So I'm, a lot of the stuff they write for kids, it's a bit easy, like, and it's but this was something that, was so raw and emotional, and and I always knew that, kids were capable of doing more than what was, been written for them. So it
Yeah.
was a great opportunity to, you know, allow two young child actors to reach their potential. Um, and the boys we cast, like Eli Solin and Leon Hughes, I mean, they're two phenomenal actors, you know, and you know, I loved working with them on that, you know, like to reach that level, you know, and I thought they did a really great job, you know, doing it. You know, I mean, they're just two, yeah, great actors, and it was wonderful working with them.
Yeah, and I think you all work together to craft something immensely special. One of the last questions I'd love to ask you is, what advice would you have for anyone looking to become a filmmaker?
All right, good one. Like, I mean, I guess, you know, I mean, depending what level you're at, you know,
Pick the
I
most
think,
controversial film you can make and then make it.
well, I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, don't be afraid to make mistakes, like, because you'll learn from it, you know, like, so I'd say, you know, like, you know, if you've got friends, you know, I mean, that's how I started, you know, I mean, like, you know, casting my parents in roles, and whoever's around, you know, I mean, just keep making films, and I think, you know, you'll learn from your mistakes, and you'll get better, you know, by that. I mean, the only way to learn is to, you know, to get things wrong, like, so yeah, I would say just kind of keep, yeah, making films, you know, and you know, when you do get to a certain level, you know, I would say as well, you know, yeah, try to trust people around you a bit more. I mean,
Yeah,
that's something I'm still coming to terms with, you know, but I'm getting better at it, as I was saying. Um, but I would say, you know, just, yeah, keep making films, you know, and try to maybe tell stories that um, you know, are personal to you as well, you know, or something that you are really passionate about. Because, you know, if you're trying to tell a story that you're not too comfortable with, or you don't know a lot about, that's going to be a harder story to tell. But if there's something in your heart that you do really care about, that'll always come through, you know, when you're
yeah.
telling
Don't
a
make films
story.
for someone else. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, it should be like, you know, I mean, like, if there's a story you're aching to tell, you know, then I think you'll tell it well, and with a good heart, you know. So, you know, ideally, you know, that's you know what you want to make, but at some stage, you know, you got to get paid to direct, and there's a big difference between being paid to direct something and emptying your bank account into a story you're aching to tell, I suppose.
So
Uh,
have loads of siblings to ask for loans would be your advice. Yeah. Tell your mother and father to get cracking. Come
I
on, we need
mean,
more.
beg, borrow, steal, you know, if you have to, like,
There you go.
but like
Whatever it
these
takes,
days,
whatever it takes.
like, you know, but like DSLRs and stuff have gotten so good now, you know, you can make something, you know, at a really high quality, you know, without having to spend an enormous amount of money, you know. So, like, for, you know, teenagers or someone making a film, you know, it doesn't have to, you know, cost an enormous amount, you know, but you can kind of, you know, work to the budget, and you know, you might not get that, you know, that crane shot or the Jimmy Jib shot or something, you know, but you can still tell a story,
Yeah.
you know, that resonates with an audience, you know.
I mean, Vincent, you put it so eloquently there. I'd love to talk with you a little bit off air. Everyone, before we finish
Yeah,
up,
sure.
are you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere people can
Yeah,
go
I'm
follow
on
you?
them all, but I'm terrible with social media. Like, but yeah,
So there'll
you'll
be
find
no
me there
selfie
under
posts from
my
Vincent
name.
Lambe. There'll be no selfie posts.
No, rarely. Like, I know, I mean, I'm on them, but I don't post stuff too often. Like, you know, but yeah, I'm always bad at keeping on top of the social media stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I'm only on it, like, I don't know, like, a few years. Like, I joined all three together, and I didn't even know what I was doing. Like, people were trying to explain to me, like, okay, so when you do a post, and I'll be like, I'll stop you there. So, what's a post?
You go in one ear, out the other. You're like,
And they'd be like, oh, Jesus.
in one ear,
So
out the other, I imagine.
I've just about got the hang of social media now, Daniel. Like, you know, I'm just enough to keep on top of it. Like, yeah.
So everyone should go follow Vincent to see some of those beautiful posts which he's talking about, which he understands. He
Yeah,
fully
one every
understands.
6 months. Like, yeah.
Maybe two posts a year sounds like a good number.
Something like that. Yeah, I won't bombard you with stuff. Yeah. I mean, unless there's something interesting happening. Like, I think over COVID, I might have done two posts, like, over the 2 years.
Oh man.
I mean,
Eh,
COVID was a hard time because I think it's for writers and anyone creative. I always admired anyone that was able to write during that period because, I think when you're not meeting new people and going to new places, it can be
yeah.
very hard to be creative. Like all you've got is like TV, books, the window, and the wall.
It's mad now because a lot of the Irish films, like Sunlight, The Black Wealth, a lot of the new Irish productions were all shot like during COVID, after
Yeah,
COVID,
yeah,
and because I think like people in Ireland literally like they were itching to get a film made, like they were like not like COVID or not,
yeah,
like I need to create, and you
yeah,
see
yeah.
like they were talking about, oh yeah, we had to stop shooting, someone got COVID. It sounds like a nightmare, but it was like they had to do it during COVID. So I mean, lot of the films now I think we're probably getting because films that like you aren't getting so much during COVID, but it's interesting. I mean, cinemas were shut down as well. It was kind of a crazy
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Oh, what a time. I mean, it feels like a bad dream now, like, doesn't it? Like
I
it's
wish I capitalized with the interviews because I started doing interviews after
yeah,
COVID.
yeah.
Oh, I probably would have gotten on Spielberg, Paul Thomas
Yeah,
Anderson in
yeah,
like the
yeah.
week.
I mean, good
Like
for you. Like, I mean, I admire how your willingness to just ask people because like generally they say yes. I mean, you'll always be surprised. Like, when the
it
answer is
never
yes,
gets
and
any
Joe
less
Russo,
crazy
you're
to me.
going out like
Yeah.
to meet them. Like, so
It never gets any less crazy to me when they say yes. I mean, I look at the people I
yeah,
talk to, and I'm like that little Irish bollocks. How does he do? Like, how do he even manage that? Like, I've been so fortunate, and like I'm under no disillusions. Like, if you talk to me, like I'm not like no one from the Academy is gonna watch this and be like, let's give that director an Oscar. Like, I like this guy. Like, it's like they're not
yeah.
gaining anything from chatting to me. So the fact that anyone takes, like, the fact that you're taking time to chat with me, it like every single time, it never gets any less magic, and I'm always
Yeah,
just
I
so
know. I'm
grateful.
more than happy to chat with you. Yeah, no, I mean, really, I think you're doing it the right way. It's brilliant to see. Yeah, like you've definitely got a knack for interviewing people. Like, so it's great because no, I've done it. I did a lot of the Q&As for some of the Oscar shorts, like, and An Irish Goodbye was one of them. So I see Tom and Ross, like, you were interviewing them, weren't you? Right?
Yeah, yeah. I was at the lighthouse and oh
Yeah,
my dude, it was probably the most nervous I've ever been because I go in there and there's like 200, 300, 400 people and they're gonna watch you in a minute. And I remember we were running to catch the train and a fly flew into my eye and I was on the train like that. And like I went into the bathroom. This was like 20 minutes before the panel was. And I was like, I'm gonna be doing the panel like that. And I couldn't breathe. And like, I was like that. I had the bottle of water and I was like, rubbing out me and my dad were just in the bathroom. And like, this was at, Connolly Station. So people
oh
were just coming
God.
into the bathroom and looking at me like that and walking by. And I was like that. And I was like rubbing it. But then once you go up there, it's like, you don't have time to be nervous and you're just sitting there and you're just talking into the microphone.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like,
I can't imagine you being nervous, Daniel. No, you
oh, dude, you'd be
are
surprised. I think
so.
it's just like I just always pretend like I'm never nervous, and then like once I start it, I'm not nervous. It's like I'm a lot less nervous now than I used to be because I've kind of done it so many times. But like it's just so magic to me getting to chat with people about film. Like it never feels like work. Like yourself, like you love film, and I can see it in the way you're talking. It's just the most magical thing in the world, and to getting to hear people's stories is it's immense.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I mean, keep doing it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You lots of charm. A little bit of charm goes a long way. I think, Daniel.
That's probably how you got nominated.
Well, I'm glad to see it's working out for you as well. So yeah, I think you've got a great future ahead of you as a filmmaker,
Oh,
or an interviewer. Like,
there you go.
there you go.
I'll
Like,
have one of those film podcasts where I'll just interview other
yeah,
filmmakers. Dude, it's been to say it's been a pleasure. It's been an understatement. We'll chat a little bit off air, but is there
oh yeah,
any new
yeah, yeah.
projects we can promote? Anything
So,
of
like, yeah,
yours?
there's one I'm working on, but I can't really tell you too much about it,
Yeah, yeah.
unfortunately. Like, the deals aren't all signed off, but it's one that would be shooting in Ireland. Like, so, yeah, yeah, it'd be a really nice one, a really incredible writer behind it, beautiful writing, and it's a story, with real heart to it. It'll rip your heart out. It's constantly eliciting emotions from you.
Amazing,
So
man.
it's
And
it's
I
one
think
I'm really excited about making.
you're
So
the perfect
hopefully.
director for it, man. It
Well,
sounds
I hope it
fantastic.
goes to plan because it's one I've been attached on for like 3 years now. It's like 2020. The way it
Oh
sort of works, like
man.
they put you in a package, and then the producers go off and try and get funding for the film, and the funding has just come through for for this one now. So it came at, you know, the right time, and I was like, oh my God, great, this one's going ahead. So touch wood, it all goes ahead,
That
right?
is that's so
Um,
terrific, man. And it
well,
couldn't have happened to a nicer person. I
well,
genuinely, you're
well, it hasn't
such a
happened yet, Daniel. So
oh, not
fingers
go.
crossed, right?
It could not hypothetically have happened to a
And
hypothetically.
there's always potential for things to fall through, like, and yeah, you know, as I was saying, my life can just be like that, you know, where things almost happen, and then it's like, oh, sorry, Vincent, actually this happened, and then I'm like, oh, well, that's just typical of my life, isn't it?
Dude, you have me nervous now. My palms are sweating about this film. Get those producers need to send an
Yeah.
email, man.
I know, Will. I think we'll know in the next few weeks. You know, like once we get everything locked off. But it's a beautiful script, and yeah, you should hopefully hear about that. You know, maybe late next year, or well, it's looking like probably a 2025 release, because it takes a while to get films made. You know, but it'll be a good one. You know, and yeah, it'll be my first feature. So I'm excited about that, and
So
yeah,
am I, man. So am
everything
oh,
goes to
so am
plan.
I, man.
Yeah, great.
You,
Well, look, keep in touch, Daniel. Yeah, you know, if
oh,
I can ever help you in the future, I'd be more than happy to. Like, so
oh, man.
let's yeah, let's keep in touch, you know.
I'd love to, man. Oh, it's such a pleasure chatting with you. Everyone, go check out Vincent's work. He's such a legend. Go follow him over on Instagram. He posts amazing posts. We were just talking. You can go follow me over on Instagram, Daniel Fleadh33, or on Twitter, the same. As always, if you have the means, please make sure to donate to the National Deaf Children's Society. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.